The great battle in the cavern. The wind whipped across his face, carrying the smell of burnt metal and crushed crystal dust. Darius Hale gasped for breath, each inhale feeling as if it dragged a burning furnace into his chest. Behind him, the ground pulsed rhythmically, not from one creature, but from an entire horde. Swarmlan. Flesh-eating worms the size of grown dogs, their dark scales gleaming with a red obrex sheen, screeching like tens of thousands of drills boring through the air. They surged through the obrex crystal forest like a black tide, grinding apart everything in their path. Ahead of him, Vra'kor led the way, his massive frame moving at an almost impossible speed. The biosteel armor covering his body clashed against crystal branches, producing sharp metallic chimes. He didn't bother glancing back, but Darius knew the Yocha could feel the chaos of their desperate escape as clearly as he did. "Don't slow down. Don't slow down." Darius gritted his teeth, running while clutching a small pouch against his chest. Inside it were several raw obrex shards he had grabbed in haste while fleeing the crystal forest. They grew hotter with every heartbeat, as if trying to burn through his protective suit. A piercing screech sliced through the wind. Darius glanced back. A swarmlan larger than the rest leapt out of the ground, its mouth splitting into two layers of jaws lined with needle-like steel teeth. For a moment, Darius was sure it would bite half his body off. A plasma blade swept across. Slash! The creature was cleaved in two, its body slamming down, sliding across the red sand before erupting into fiery dust. Vra'kor never turned, only gave a low growl, an animalistic warning telling the human behind him to stay alive. Darius didn't argue. He lowered his head and sprinted. The obrex crystal forest thinned out. The air grew drier, harsher. The ground sloped downward, guiding them toward a mountainside, where Darius's hidden shelter lay beyond fractured rock ridges. But escaping the forest didn't mean safety. As they crossed a field of shattered stones, a hoarse rumble, like rocks grinding, echoed from the right. Another creature, a four-legged therax the size of a truck, had been awakened by the shrieking swarm. Its eyes glowed a fiery red, like twin furnaces glaring at the pair on the run. It bellowed and charged. Darius nearly stumbled, but Vra'kor spun instantly. Two mechanical spears fired from his shoulder, piercing straight into the therax's skull. The beast toppled, its massive body skidding across the gravel in a cloud of dust. "There, actually this many," Darius panted. But before he could even steady himself, the ground behind them thundered again. The swarmlan burst fully out of the crystal forest, an exploding black waterfall. Darius felt his throat turn to stone. They had only one chance left: reach the cave. When the familiar cliffside came into sight, Darius shouted, "Almost there!" Vra'kor didn't reply, only growled through his mask, but Darius could feel the pressure crushing down on them. The swarm was close. Too close. Some of the worms had begun climbing over the rocks on both sides, ready to pounce. Darius scrambled up the rocky slope, slipping several times as jagged stone and sweat made it impossible to find grip. But with one desperate push, he hauled himself into the cave entrance. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, Darius yanked the trigger rope for his trap. Snap! Crash! A cascade of boulders fell from the right wall, sealing the passage. Dozens of swarmlan were crushed instantly, others screeched in fury, blocked for now. But the ones climbing higher were already swarming over. These things knew no fear. "Vra'kor, get in!" Vra'kor activated his speed boost. He shot forward like a massive shadow, the shrieks snapping right at his heels. Before Darius could even form a thought, the Yacha hit the cave floor and slid inside. But a heartbeat later, a giant swarmlan lunged straight at the cave mouth, its body longer than Darius' entire height, jaws gaping wide to tear everything apart. Darius yelled, "Hold it!" Together, they shoved a large stone slab into the entrance. Vra'kor slammed his shoulder into it, while Darius piled smaller rocks to reinforce it with everything he had left. The beasts shrieked outside, smashing against the blockage like living arrows. The whole cave shook violently. "Not done yet!" Darius shouted, voice raw. Vra'kor pulled a hardened bone from some long-dead beast off his belt and used it as a wedge, hammering it into a crack to lock the stone in place. A sharp click echoed. The entrance was temporarily secured. Outside, the swarm battered the rocks. Each impact felt like it could shatter the entire wall. In the darkness, Darius gasped for air. His heart felt like it might explode. But Vra'kor stood still. a solid shadow in the gloom. After a few seconds, he stepped back from the entrance, then suddenly tossed something to Darius. Darius caught it and stared. It was a Yautja energy gun, an old model but pristine as if newly forged. Below it, a curved blade rested in its sheath, gleaming like a shard of moonlight. This is for me? Darius asked, breath trembling. Vra'kor didn't answer. He nodded once, slow and deliberate. Outside, the rock shook violently again. A crack began crawling across the stone. Darius tightened his grip on the gun. The sword was cold and heavy, pulling him back into the present moment. Vra'kor turned, raising his twin energy blades glowing bright, then angled his head toward Darius, as if saying, "Fight or die." Part of the stone entrance exploded inward. Red light from dozens of swarmlon flooded in like a wave of fire. Darius inhaled, and for the first time he stood beside a Yautja, not as prey, but as an unwilling comrade in arms.